Good evening, everyone. It's 6:05 p.m. We're in the Esther Howland Chamber. We also have remote access through Teams available. This is a hybrid meeting of the regular monthly meeting of the Human Rights Commission for the City of Worcester. My name is Patricia LaFour. I'm the Executive Director of Human Rights and Accessibility. We have a program predominantly dedicated to our guests from Post this evening. I'm going to take a brief roll call and then hand the meeting over to the chair. Just a bit of a reminder, we are recording this meeting, so if you don't wish to be recorded, you should leave, and the chair will direct you as to the public comment guidance. So a roll call of the members present. Chair Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Here.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman.
Here.
Clerk Carrie Witherell is not present and will not be present. Member Dr. Bernard Reese.
Here.
Member Anahit Meridian.
Here.
Member Drew Schneblin.
Oh, Drew said he's waiting to be let in virtually.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
there
in, he's in. Member Drew Schneblin.
Oh, there I am. Here.
Thank you. Member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis.
Here.
And Member Jacqueline Yang. So we have enough members to have a quorum to proceed. I will yield back to the chair. Thank you.
Great. Okay, awesome. Thank you. So, Anahit, do you have what I had sent you? Do you want to read
Yes.
that today? Awesome.
Land
Okay, I'm
acknowledgement.
gonna have.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna have Anahit read the land acknowledgement, and then I'll read the mission/key terms since Carrie's not here. Go ahead, Anahit.
Next, we will continue our practice of acknowledging the traditional ancestral territory of the First Peoples of Massachusetts on which land we are convening tonight. The Nipmuc Nation is what is now Worcester County. While the Nipmuc history predates written history, records from the 1600s inform us that the original inhabitants of Worcester dwelled principally in 3 locations: Packagug, Tattaset, and Wigwam Hill. It is important to make this acknowledgement and to honor the ancestors that have come before us. Unfortunately, it is all too easy to live in this land without ever hearing the traditional names and history of the people who first resided and prospered in these lands, and continue to reside and prosper.
Thank you. I will take the time now to read our HRC mission and key terms. The HRC was established to promote the city's human rights policy. It is the policy of the city to assure that every individual shall have equal access to and benefit from all public services, to protect every individual in the enjoyment and exercise of civil rights, and to encourage and bring about mutual understanding and respect amongst all individuals of the city. It is the goal of the HRC to ensure that all city residents are treated fairly and equally by eliminating bigotry, discrimination, intolerance, and prejudice. Our work requires us to address institutional racism so that as a community, we can achieve racial equity. Our work also requires us to make visible the unheard, unearned, and unquestioned privilege enjoyed by some members of the community to the detriment of others. We take time to make this acknowledgement to educate so that a path can be cleared for healing. Some of the key terms that we use here is institutional racism. The term institutional racism refers specifically to the ways in which institutional policies create different outcomes for different racial groups. The institutional policies may never mention any racial groups, but their effort is to create advantages for whites and oppression and disadvantages for people from groups classified as people of color. Racial equity. The term racial equity is an active state in which race does not determine one's livelihood or success. It is achieved through proactive work to address root causes of inequities to improve outcomes for all individuals. That is, through the elimination of shifting of policies, practices, attitudes, and cultural messaging that reinforces different outcomes by race or fail to eliminate them. And lastly, privilege. The term privilege describes the unearned social power and informal institutions of society to all members of a dominant group. For example, white privilege and male privilege. Privilege is usually invisible to those who have it, because we are trained not to see it. But nevertheless, it puts them at an advantage against those who do not have it. And with that, I am going to open it up for public comment. As a reminder, we allow for individuals of the public to speak for 2 minutes. Pat, can you see if anyone in the public would like to say anything?
Anyone member of the public, if you wish to make a comment, please use the raised hand symbol at the top of the Teams menu, and we will recognize people in the order that they make the request. Currently, there are no members, members of the public. Oh, I see one. Tom, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, I just wanted to say how thrilled I am to see that the Executive Director of Post will be here tonight. It's unfortunate that our Committee on Public Safety hasn't taken the same responsible action, but we know why that is. I would just encourage members to ask a very important question that goes to previous conversations you had. Has the creation of the Post Commission replaced any of the responsibilities of municipalities in police oversight? Right? The point is, does Post do things in lieu of the city now because it was created? The answer will be no. But I think it's an important question to ask, is has the Post Commission mitigated any of the responsibilities previously held by the municipality in police oversight? Because that is a suggestion that a few councilors are making, which is, of course, patently false. So I would love to see that question asked. I'm sure that the Executive Director, who's a wonderful public servant and has done an amazing job in erecting this state-level department, will give an insightful answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public who would like to ask any questions or make any comments?
Okay, thank you. I would like a motion to be able to change around the order in which we are doing things. I actually would like our guests to go first, and then the commission business to be done after that. Pat, do I need a roll call for that, or do I
No,
just
I don't
need to
even
ask
think we
for-
need to do anything about that, even
Great.
though you have everything listed, as long as we're still following the agenda. I had actually
Sounds
discussed
good.
this with Reverend Talley today by email because he might have had a time constraint. So I had told him we might do that to recognize his time crunch.
Right, okay. All right, so then with that, I am gonna hand it over to our guests here this evening, who can take the mic. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to show them where to sit, so that way they know how to do this. And then for commissioners, please pay some attention to what is being presented. If you have any questions, I'll let our guests decide whether they want us to interrupt them or wait until the end. So whenever they're ready, let's just give them a minute. If our guests can just introduce themselves and the title that they hold, so that way commissioners are aware. And I apologize for not being there in person to our guests.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, can you hear me, everybody?
I can, yes.
Good evening. My name is Enrique Zuniga. I am the Executive Director of the Post Commission.
And good evening. My name is Deborah Hall, and I'm a Post Commissioner.
Thank you both for joining us tonight. I really appreciate the commitment that you all have as public servants, and for being here this evening to share with us very important information. And like I said before, if you all would like for us to interrupt with questions or wait until the end, just let us know what your preference is, but essentially the floor is yours.
We would welcome any questions at any time. I understand some of you may be familiar with us already, so I won't get into a lot of the details. Maybe I can just give an overview, and then we can go from there. Then Commissioner Hall can supplement as she sees fit. As many of you know, we are a state agency that oversees all police agencies in the state, all 444. and certify about 22,000 officers in the state, and decertify or discipline those that we take action on. I'll give you some general numbers. We are 51 employees currently. We've been at this 4.5 years. The law that created the Post Commission passed at the very end of 2020, and we've been building this agency since then. Germane to the conversation that I know you're all interested in, all agencies are required to submit complaints and incident reports within 2 business days of them receiving them. And by incident reports, I mean also an internal incident of misconduct or prohibited conduct, or something for which the officer is going to be potentially disciplined. That is, there's a report that comes to us. It's supposed to come within 2 business days, and that is, of course, presupposes that there's no investigation yet. It's just informing us that it's going to take place. We have a portal that we developed for agencies to do that. Then they're required to send us, subsequent to that report, they're required to start an investigation within 14 days, and then complete an investigation 90 days after that, and submit it to us. And then they're required to impart discipline if it was something that merits so. And they are also then required to submit that information to us. In other words, on any case that is a complaint, we are interacting at least 3 times via our portal with agencies: when they first submit it, when they complete the investigation, and when they impart discipline. And sometimes the investigation and the discipline coming at the same time. We're also required, all these agencies are required to submit information also initially, even if the complaint or the incident is not sustained because of the 2-day threshold that I mentioned. So we get a lot of information submitted to us, some of which is not sustained, the officer is exonerated, etc. But then other times they're disciplined, and we also capture that information. We published a set of disciplinary records in our website, and that is all that we have of active officers and their history of discipline. And a lot of the information that we get in real time eventually makes it into those disciplinary records that I mentioned. We average about 30 complaints per week during, from all these agencies. That comes out to about 1,600 complaints or incident reports per year. I mentioned we have a team of 51 employees in total. We're going to try to grow that to about 55 in the next couple of months. But the people that actually deal with the complaints and incident reports that I keep talking about are 20 people, between attorneys and investigators or intake coordinators that get information, that they see the information, they triage it, they decide, they flag it for us to review. It may be, we may take action or not, or wait until the disposition from the agency to then take action after that. We conduct a lot of those reviews in executive session. The commission is subject to the open meeting law, and there's typically, of course, a public portion where we give updates, review regulations, what have you. And when we get into discussing the cases that we're going to discuss, they go into executive session. They deliberate also in private, and then we publish the decisions that on the cases that we do in our website, and people can see them and so on. I know there's a conversation locally around a civilian review board. Let me mention that before I turn it over to Commissioner Hall. There's two other bodies locally that you may know about. But let me mention, Boston has an Office of Police Accountability and Transparency, OPAT, for those who may not be familiar with it. I think they were created by city ordinance. They make recommendations to the commissioner of the Boston Police, and the commissioner may or may not take those recommendations. We have had conversations with them, mostly around, in the Boston case, mostly about their duties towards OPAT, and we say, your duties towards OPAT are of no concern to us. You have duties towards us, like everyone else. You have to look at your regulations and our regulations in order to comply with them. Let me also mention the Springfield has a body, I believe it's called the Springfield Board of Commissioners, that acts in a very similar way to what I described about OPAT. They review the internal affairs body, typically sends their findings to this Board of Commissioners, and they may or may not agree with those findings, and then make recommendations also to the Chief of Police. Again, we don't interact all that much with them on a regular basis because the internal affairs people responsible for submitting reports to us, they have to submit them, as I described, via the portal, independent of the body that I described. Let me pause there and see if Commissioner Hall wants to expound or add anything, and then get any questions.
Yeah, I don't think at this point I want to expound, but I think what would be helpful, Enrique, is to maybe talk a little bit about the difference between what we do as a post commission versus what maybe a local oversight board would do. I think that's one of the issues.
Thank you for that, which is very relevant. So we have the ability and authority to ultimately decertify an officer and get them entirely out of law enforcement. That's not the only recourse. That's the worst outcome. We can order retraining, and in fact, the Commission has done that on a number of cases. The Commission, in some cases, has decided not to go any further with the proceedings because it may be that they're satisfied with what the agency did in terms of discipline, or they feel that it's not going to rise to the level of severity that we typically look for as the indicators in the statute. But the bodies that I described in Boston and Springfield, they don't have the authority to ultimately impart the discipline or mandate that an officer be, for example, decertified or terminated, which is something, terminations is something, of course, that the chief has the ability to do in some cases around the state. That is an authority that goes to the local, the mayor or the local government body. But independent of what happens with the chief's decision or that body, if we take action against an officer and the Commission believes ultimately that that officer should lose their certification, we do that via an adjudicatory process, which is open to the public in some cases to observe, and again could result in ultimate revocation of the officer's certification.
Can I just ask a quick question, just because we're kind of on this topic? So, from your perspective, the existence of a civilian review board does not necessarily impede or negatively impact the work that you all are doing. Is that a correct assumption, or I'm curious what your perspective is?
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. That's from our perspective, we lean via regulations which carry the force of law on the agencies to comply with what we want them to comply. And if they have other duties, they have to deal with them the way they're required to do.
All right, I'll go. My broad question is, how do you select the cases that you choose to review? But specifically getting at that inquiry. When you have certain city police departments, such as ours in Worcester, where claims for unreasonable use of force are most often not sustained, although sometimes they're sustained as a reporting violation, not as a violation of the use of force. Do you consider that the overall operational performance of the internal affairs unit in the particular police department, or do you look broadly at those kind of things? Or instead, is it simply an individual determination about that individual's police conduct, doesn't matter where and how it came about, or what the reputation is of the body that's already looked at it? So really, how do you decide which cases, what factors go into which police officer conduct that you choose to review of the many, many, many police departments, college departments, state police, of the many, the number you gave, 1,600 per year that you get? How do you choose which ones to look at? What factors go into that?
Sure. Thank you for that question. Well, let me start with this. There are certain cases, certain instances that require a mandatory preliminary inquiry, which is the term that the statute uses for our investigation. When an officer is charged with a felony, for example, we immediately suspend them, and that's a mandatory preliminary inquiry. By the way, let me make a parenthesis there. We yield to criminal proceedings to take place because those are, of course, take precedence. And if charges are dropped or the officer is, found not guilty, or in some cases, lack of prosecution, etc., we then may take action for, violation of rules, etc. So we go after the cases mandatory. I mentioned felonies. We can take cases around misdemeanors. We also, when the chief recommends that we decertify somebody, sometimes they don't have the authority to do that or to terminate the individual. We must open a preliminary inquiry, and that's a big part of the cases that we see. Let me mention these two use of force, which is important. I mentioned the 1,600 cases a year, reports that get to us. The statute, and we make an exception for what's called minor matters. And there's a definition, and I can expound on that if necessary in a few minutes. But the statute does not consider allegations of use of force or bias or actions that resulted in injuries or death to be minor. So every instance of excessive force needs to be reported to us. Now the statute uses the term complaints, and that's very widely understood. We like to add that it's also incident reports, meaning when an agency reviews a case as part of their internal affairs investigation process for excessive force, that needs to be submitted to us. Now, with all of these data, and we're beginning to do a lot more of these, our intention is to look for trends relative to multiple instances, even if they're unsustained or the officer is exonerated. We have recently issued regulations around audit, and we are bringing to the commission a number of standards on agency certification, because our intention is go to the not individual officer, which is what we've been doing, but more systemic issues around agencies, how they're going about complying with the regulations, and whether there's trends that merit us looking, just like the cases that you allude. Maybe a number of cases that are exonerated or not sustained. There is the potential for us to look into those.
So the pattern and practice you're referring to, it doesn't so much come from an individual city or police department or any broad categories, but pattern and practice among individual officers who seem to have had complaints issued against them numerous times. Is that the pattern?
I would submit to you both.
Okay.
Now, we have not been doing a lot of that, in the recent past. Our intention is to do more of that. We asked the legislature for funding to add attorneys to conduct some of these audits. We have developed a system and data that is going to enable us to aggregate those data and look for trends and look to do analytics between agencies that might look similar and are reporting very different numbers of cases, for example. That would enable us to go and maybe audit some of these agencies.
So the agencies could be individual police departments where
Yes.
a lot of complaints
Yes.
seem to arise from.
Yes.
Nice.
When I say agency, I mean a police department.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, is there any opportunity for anyone on their own not to make a complaint through the police department, but to make a complaint directly to you at post? And if so, can that be done anonymously, or does that have to be done with the person who's making the complaint identifying themselves?
Yes, there is definitely an opportunity. We have a website. They can call our number, our main number. We have a portal that people can submit information and call us, with a reference number to inquire about it. They can do so anonymously. There has to be a basis for us to be able to investigate. We get a number of complaints that there's not always basis, but we try to contact the person if they left contact information to get some information if we needed it. We started with many more complaints coming from agencies, from police departments submitted to us. It's been now a couple of years that number flipped, and we're getting more complaints submitted to us directly from the individual. We look at those. We then see if maybe they submitted the complaint already via the police department and match it to see so that we don't have double complaints. But we have now a greater portion of complaints come to us directly.
And if somebody makes that complaint anonymously, do they have a choice to say, this is who I am, I'm making it to you, I don't want my name out there at all, but any follow-up questions you can give, you can ask me, be happy to participate anonymously, or could they also just call, make their complaint, not give their name, and is that actionable by you or not actionable?
What we say is there has to be a basis for investigation. What we do and have found that people take advantage of this is that somebody makes a complaint on behalf of someone else. It could be an attorney, conceivably, or it's just somebody that they trust who leaves a contact information, for example, and that could be a way to follow up as necessary. But again, we don't want to dissuade anybody from submitting complaints, so we of course allow for whatever level of comfort they have towards sharing their own information. But again, in return, we ask that there be a basis for us to investigate. Sometimes we get complaints that that they don't give us the name of the officer, for example, or the circumstances are such that it's very hard for us to ascertain what happened, which is true for police departments. They deal with things like these as well. So in the regulations, which is something that we asked, we put in the regulations that police departments are required to also accept anonymous complaints, but so long as there is a basis for an investigation and they need to act on it.
And jurisdictionally, before you were created, do you have jurisdiction over complaints from before you were created? And if so, is there a statute of limitation on that?
So we received, when we were created, we received all the records of active officers as of July 1, 2021. The statute grandfathered everybody who was active at that time and certified them if they were active. And we have all their history. So their history goes back, if they were active, we have, are supposed to have all their history. Now, we had to make a choice as to complaints from people that were active, that were not active in July 1 of 2021. Maybe matters that were pending, the officer had already left or had recently left. We decided not to go after those cases. But we have information, that goes back to, before 2021, as I mentioned. Now, when something else comes up, let's say a new allegation on an officer that was active in 2021 and had a history, whatever it was, we can take into account their whole history as we take, action against one of those, that officer. Because some of the grounds for decertification include a history of complaints or behavior that we believe can escalate, or that the commission believes that it could escalate. So in that context, somebody could be disciplined or ultimately lose their certification for something they did, that includes a history of that goes back beyond 2021.
And if an officer in that pre-2021 grouping has retired, under what activities that they want to do in the future, would you perhaps take a look at some of their past activity? And if they, for instance, if they wanted to work at the polls, or if they wanted to work in the registry of motor vehicles doing private security, like in what situation do you say you're retired, you're not going to be a police officer anymore, we're busy with things, 1,600 cases coming in, so we're just going to, let sleeping dogs lie on this one? And which cases do you say, but you're still being active in some respect, and we think that we still need to keep you on our radar?
The biggest case of that would be people retired and working details. So our position is that if you are retired, working details, and carry the authority of other police officers, including being armed, you could arrest somebody, you could, as part of those details, you could conceivably search someone. In other words, exercise police duties and functions. Then they have to be certified, and they have to continue reporting misconduct, reporting updates to their certification status, etc. And we have a category of just that. You mentioned an example about private security. That does not concern us. That's not within the scope. If somebody retires for good from what everybody understands, and we have a definition about these police duties and functions, then that person has left the force and is no longer in need of certification.
Let me open it up, and then if there's time, I'll come back with a few.
Okay.
If I could just say, Reverend Talley has joined remotely online for Commissioner Zuniga and, Director Zuniga and Commissioner Hall, so you know that he's present remotely with you.
Okay, so then let me go. How many investigations are currently being conducted now?
We have approximately 100. I could get you the exact number, but we have about 100 investigations ongoing, or cases ongoing. Last year, we closed about 65, that resulted in some kind of discipline or closed with no action. It was a little uptake from the year before. It was about 55 into 2024. And the way things are going, at any given month, we have a monthly meeting. We are starting to open more cases than we are closing. So we're watching that, 100 mark, case mark, closely, because that's a question of also of resources.
So I think I read that there's 2,300 some odd state police officers. I think I read that there's 400 or 350, hundreds of municipalities.
Yep.
And certainly college, university state
Yes.
police. Do you have any estimate about how many police officers there are in Massachusetts of one sort or another?
Yeah, about 22,000.
Okay, so 22,000 police officers, 100 investigations generally,
Yep.
is about where we're at.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
When you came here last time, I asked you a question, and I actually believed that maybe we didn't need any oversight here in Worcester because Post was going to do dramatically wonderful things. And maybe you can talk a little about the structure of who's on Post and how they got there, because it was very impressive the way it was created.
Yep.
And I was so optimistic that, Post seems like it's perfectly designed, great authority, real experts, and it should be sufficient. Maybe we don't need oversight. So I asked you a question, and I asked, what do you think about oversight? Do you find local oversight of whatever sort, civilian, combination police, civilian, independent auditor, whatever it's going to be, do you find that helpful, or do you think Post is generally enough? And to my surprise, if I remember correctly, you said, we don't want to stand in the way of anything that anybody wants to do locally. If you find that helpful, we certainly wouldn't stand in the way of that. And I wanted you to address that issue a little, if you could.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think just by your questions, Commissioner, you can get to the heart of the matter, that we have to be very selective in the cases that we take, the ones that we feel we are obligated to open one, or the ones that would be a mandatory decertification. Those end up being resource intensive because we believe and are committed to a system of due process, and that carries, what you can imagine, communications with their lawyers for the officers, and hearings and pre-hearings and so on and so forth. So we rely on the chiefs to tell us, recommend what cases they feel we should address, and that is an important tool in the system. Similarly, we can use oversight bodies to tell us, if you're going to look at one case, why don't you look at this one? We will gladly do that, because we have a number of things that we have to deal with, including getting a lot of the information that I mentioned to be able to do the analytics that we want to do, to look at trends, and to bring the cases that we do. Now, let me mention this, because I know it's been a question I have gotten in the past, whether the Post Commission would endorse or stand, want to be for or against something like this. And I think we should remain neutral. That's just my opinion. There's a good and long tradition of local control in Massachusetts that I'm familiar over many years in state government, and I think this falls squarely into that when it comes to how the city wants to organize and address their concerns. Again, I think there could be opportunities to collaborate if there was another body, but I think it needs to be said that it could be a question of resources locally as well. Because now the police department, and this happens in Boston, and they're dealing with it, and this happens in Springfield as well. The police department then needs to submit potentially cases or information to two different bodies, but I think that's really up to them.
So if there's 22,000 police officers and 100 investigations, I think us as a community, for those who say, don't worry, let Post take care of it, like I thought when you were first created, for me, this commissioner, I don't see how the math works out. I think, go ahead.
Let me mention something which I think is important. The number of the time frames that I mentioned are for the investigation to happen at the police department, and they do happen, and they submit those to us, and we look at them. Those investigations, there's many more. The cases, when I say 100 cases, those are the ones that we have actively going and are taking action against the officer. This is just the Post Commission. All these agencies, all the police departments, they have a number of cases all the time. They impart discipline. Again, it's unfortunate that it happens in the amount that they happen, but it's many more cases that where an officer is disciplined or sometimes terminated, and it may or may not be that we take action on any of those cases.
One of the things that comes up very often when we talk about whether we should create some sort of body in order to do some sort of another set of eyes on investigatory matters with the police is, well, it's always going to be political. This one's going to appoint this person, this is going to appoint this person. And I remember when your commission was created, I was just so impressed with the way that the different commissioners were put on from different walks of life with different points of view and different constituencies and areas of expertise. Could you talk a little bit about the construction of your body in case we ever wanted to emulate a similar body, how contextually we should look at structuring that body?
Sure. The commission is a nine-member body. There's 9 commissioners, in other words. It's chaired by a retired judge. That's a requirement of the statute. The other, all commissioners are appointed either by the Attorney General, the Governor, or both of them jointly. In other words, the Governor appoints 3 commissioners. One of them is the chair. The Attorney General appoints other 3 commissioners, and then the 2 appointing authorities collaborate on the remaining 3 commissioners. They rotate. They have staggered terms, and they're 5-year terms with a maximum of 10 years. After 10 years, they can no longer serve. And the statute requires that they come from different backgrounds. One of them is a active police chief. One of them is somebody recommended from the policy group, so the unions have a say in one of those commissioners. One of them comes from a recommendation of the Mass Association of Minority Law Enforcement Officers. And the others have to have experience in social workers, community organizing, and other relevant fields. Do you want to expand on any of that, Commissioner?
I don't, but I do want to know, you do have Commissioner Talley and myself here, which is rare. So I do want to know, are there any specific, thank you for all of that. I think that's some great information, and I know Enrique joined you all before. But do you have any specific questions for us as commissioners that we can answer?
I wanted to ask that actual question. So, Commissioner, you two, we're so grateful that Worcester is well represented
Yes.
on the commission. And could we ask, how did you get selected or assigned, or how did you come to represent us? And we're so grateful for that as a community. And could you talk about that and what your participation feels like?
Sure. So different organizations have appointees. My appointment actually came from, I was a recommendation from the Mass Commission Against Discrimination. I'm a joint appointee of the governor and the attorney general. And so it's someone giving your name and saying, I think this person would be a good candidate. And then you go through a process, right? A lot of background checking goes on, and then you are interviewed, right? And see if they think you may be a good fit, or if you want to do this particular, join the post. And then a decision is made, and you're told a decision has been made to appoint you to this commission. So I actually came in, I took the seat of activist organizer in Boston who left the commission for personal reasons. And so I'm filling in like part of her term, and then I'll do the second part maybe if they want me to stay. But it's been really enlightening. It's hard work. Enrique talks a little bit about the cases that we see, but it's a lot of reading, a lot of exhibits. It is a learning process. One of the things I really enjoy is that it is made up of such a diverse group of people. So you are working with law enforcement, and that perspective is necessary. A chief from a jurisdiction, union president, and we have another high-ranking official from the police department, and then you have a therapist, and then you have, of course, Reverend Clyde, you have myself, CEO of YWCA Central Mass, people who work in the district attorney's office, a former defense attorney. So it's a wonderful mix of people with so many different perspectives, but who are smart and care about the work that they do, and we listen to each other, right? It's a wonderful staff, Enrique leading the team, but a wonderful staff of people, attorneys. A lot of work goes into what we do, right? And that's when I think about, a civilian oversight board and the conversations, and anything I say from here on out will be me and me only, not representative of the Post Commission. I do have to say that. But when I think about what that would look like for a community, I think the work we do is another resource. I think it can be complementary, but the Post, to me, does not take the place of a civilian oversight board in a local community, right? But it can complement, and it can be another tool that we use. So I think it's important, however, that like the Post Commission, that any civilian oversight board, first and foremost, would have the authority to make decisions. So Enrique mentioned Boston. Of course, they have a civilian oversight board, but they give recommendations to the commissioner. One that he can take or not, right? And so it really doesn't, it's sort of like the Advisory Committee on the Status of Women that I sat on for several years. It has no teeth. You're just advising the city manager, or you're just telling them, maybe, take a look at this is what we have, but you have no teeth. And so, one of the things, we have a lot of authority, right? We decertify people. We do that for life across the country. We can do, that's the ultimate, like you can never work in law enforcement again. So that would be one thing I would think about, like if it doesn't have any authority, it's almost a waste of time, everybody's time really, and it can be very frustrating, right? So the other thing, I think it has to be, people have to talk to each other. It has to be a good mix, like ours is. yeah, we don't want police on. Why not? There's insight that they can bring. I understand why people may be upset, but there's a great insight, things that we've learned, at least I've learned, I'll speak for myself, while being on the commission, that you just don't know, right? Even though I have brothers who are police officers, like you just don't know. And I bring a different perspective also. It's the work I do, right? That maybe you didn't think about, maybe you did. But it's always very respectful, like having all of those opinions at the table, and good is good, bad is bad. Like we can agree on things most of the time. So it's, I think that's really important, but it's been a wonderful experience. Again, Enrique, they started from the ground. I came on a little later, but really built that organization from, I don't know how many people you had, Enrique, but into the wonderful work that team does today, the multiple attorneys, the investigators, the people who take those calls that come in from the public. It's really a well-oiled machine, which means, well, let's take it to the next level, because we know there's still gaps in even what we do. But it seems to work well. And I love working with Commissioner Talley. Are you on somewhere?
Yeah.
Commissioner Talley?
Yes, I'm here.
And I'm saying these
No, I was waiting for
because
you
I
to
know you're
finish. Go
on
ahead.
here, so I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your experience as a post commissioner.
Okay. Well, I too came as a recommendation from the Attorney General and the Governor's office. I had already served, or I currently serve as an advisory member on racial equity for the Attorney General, and someone who had worked with the Attorney General, who's now serving as the head of staff for the Governor, remembered me from that advisory council and contacted me and asked if I would be willing to serve. And it's a rigorous process in regard to being brought on to post. There's an extensive interview that you go through, paperwork that needs to be filled out. And what I appreciate, now I piggyback on everything my colleague has said, Deborah. In addition to that, what it offers me is the ability to give a voice for the community, because as a pastor, sometimes I hear about how people were treated by the police, and why is this person still an officer, and why don't somebody do something about this? And you hear stories about, well, they got in trouble at this department, but they transferred to a whole different police department in another city, so they're still doing whatever they want to do. They escape judgment. Isn't there something in place where something can be done about this? And that's post. And again, like my colleague said, we can decertify a police officer so they can no longer serve as a police officer anywhere in the United States. So that's a lot of power. And also, by virtue of the meetings that we have in regard to the cases that we discuss and deliberate and make decisions on, we thoroughly look at each particular case, all the facts, different perspectives, and come out with a unanimous decision as to what should be done with that officer. So there is a process in regard to things that police may have done that give other police officers a bad name. There's some bad apples in the bunch, but there's a lot of good officers. But for those who step over the law and do things that they shouldn't be doing, the post to me serves as a recourse as to something that can be done to address any officer who's out of line and is not compliant with the statute as to what they should be doing as a police officer. And also what I love about post is that we're not just restricted to a certain portion of Massachusetts. We cover all of Massachusetts, and police officers in different vocations. You have some in colleges, you have regular police officers, you have the state police. So it encompasses all of that. So we have oversight over all those officers. So there is accountability, and I like accountability. I've always liked accountability. So we offer that accountability to the public because, once again, we are their voice. We hear some things too, and we bring up our opinion or our perspective, based on certain things that we've heard as well. And I love the collaboration that we have. We all respect each other's opinion, and we all come from different walks of life. And the most important thing is that we come to a unanimous decision as to what is in the best interest of the public, as to what should be done, based on the facts involved. So I'm complete.
Well, let me just kind of say thank you to the three of you. You know, I appreciate you sharing the stuff of post, but also sharing your own personal opinions as well, because I think that does matter. Do I have any other commissioners that would like to ask specific questions to the commissioners that are present here with us, but also just overall post questions?
Commissioner Hall, question for you there. You know, you brought up your own personal opinion on the oversight committee there. And, you know, you talked about, unless it has authority, there really is no weight. So in your opinion, not as a post commissioner, but as, you know, Mrs. Hall, what is authority look like for you for a oversight committee?
Yeah, so in my own opinion, yeah, subpoena power, the power that the recommendation that would be made would have to be followed by the authorities. Those are the two main things. I mean, that just makes sense to me in any oversight board. And I think that's what people expect when they talk about an oversight board. Again, like in Boston, a lot of those oversight boards, civilian oversight boards, whatever they call it in their different communities, is usually driven by activists in those communities. Something has happened, right? And so in order for there to be some accountability, as Commissioner Talley mentioned, then you need to have the authority to enforce something. And if you can't do that, it can sometimes cause more harm than good, right? And people feel like, what was the point of all of this? So at the very subpoena power and the authority behind, like, our decisions are our decisions. You're decertified. There's no going to someone to say, is it okay that we decertify? The decision is made by this 9-member body, and it sticks. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I was going to follow up on the subpoena power thing. So I don't know enough about how this stuff works to know how you do fact finding. Like, a lot of times when you develop the facts, then the conclusions will follow from those facts. So it's the development of the facts, and subpoena power is one way to develop the facts. Are there other ways besides subpoena power that a commission could take authority to develop facts and not just get reports beyond subpoena power?
Well, we conduct interviews of the people that we are taking actions on. And it's typically, of course, the subject or the individual, but there's other interviews that we may conduct, witnesses or victims. We rely by necessity and strategically a lot of information that has already taken place, maybe by the time it gets to us. I mentioned earlier, if there's a criminal case that falls by the wayside because of lack of prosecution, for example, we could look at all of that. We have a different standard of review, or you know, in a criminal case has to be beyond reasonable doubt. We have clear and convincing evidence, so the threshold is slightly different. But again, it's what you would imagine: interviews, witnesses, and then ultimately an adjudicatory proceeding that would be a hearing in front of a hearing officer with the two sides, presenting evidence and making arguments, and the hearing officer making assessments of credibility, whether, you know, the officer seems credible or not, whether the witness or not seems credible, in order to make recommendations that ultimately come to the commission.
And I guess because you could subpoena somebody in, if you ask them to come for an interview, they're much more likely to come for an interview.
Yeah.
Because if they didn't, you tell them, we'll subpoena you, you're going to come one way or another. I guess that's where the subpoena power is
Yeah.
a lever.
Yeah. Which the Division of Standards in our commission has that subpoena power. It's very valuable. We don't use it all the time, but we've had to use it in the past. We'd rather invite the individuals and come, because it's in their interest. But where we need to, we will exercise that power, and we have done it.
Commissioner Hall, Commissioner Talley, I want to ask, this is kind of an oddball question. Is there anything from being on the commission that you didn't know when you went into these meetings that you discovered that you said, wow, I would have never really known that, but that's significant, and I'm glad I was able to learn. Anything come to mind on that kind of thinking?
I'll defer to you, Commissioner Talley. I'll let you go first.
Well, for me, one thing that I didn't know is that you can have a hearing where you can have a conversation with somebody who's about to be disciplined to hear them out and for them to state their case as to why they think they should be disciplined, or why they think they probably should not be disciplined. So some officers are given that opportunity, so it's not an open and shut deal. There are occasions where that happens, and that happened at the last meeting. And one thing that I didn't know and that I appreciate is on the Mass Post website, you can find all the decisions, the orders, the reviews, the certifications, the suspensions, the decertification status of officers. Now, prior to post, I had no idea that even existed. But if people wanted to see, well, what's happening with these officers, or what's happening with these cases that they're looking at, what decision did they come to, and what's going to be done with this officer? But that's public information, and that can be found on the website. So that is something that I learned and that I appreciate. And I think it's helpful because, once again, as my colleague Commissioner Hall said, that shows the accountability of the Post Commission, that we are effective, that we are making decisions, that we are making changes, that we are making decisions, that we are responding to complaints, that we are responding to disciplinary decisions as necessary. So I think that should give the public a certain level of confidence in the Post Commission. And again, prior to joining Post, I didn't know any of that existed. But now that I'm in it and I'm doing it, it's good to know. And I can share that with others, because chances are other people don't know about that either.
I think for me, I didn't learn anything new necessarily, because I'd worked in courts before and kind of understood process but I think what is wonderful about Post, I mean, all of us, we work hard, right? And I'm on a lot of different committees and things where you talk about things, you want to implement things, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But it really, the diverse group of Post commissioners, I expected it to work well, but it really is great to have so many voices around a table. And it may be these particular commissioners that are really respectful of each other and each other's expertise, in addition to opinions. It really is a well-run machine right now, with things that then you continue to think about how it can evolve and the work we can do. But I believe all the time, I know the work we do has impact on our state, in our communities, because you have that authority. Like, you make decisions every day. Work is getting done all the time. And so that's really satisfying to me as a commissioner. It's not that we just talk about it. We're making decisions every day or every month when we come together that affects the people of the Commonwealth. and we're able to discipline officers that need discipline, right? But also able to be of some support as we put policies and procedures in place for law enforcement. So I think the surprise is not that it's easy at all, but that it's immediate, it's gratifying, and it really does work. And so I appreciate that.
Can I add something that I think may be interesting for the discussion? So 22,000 officers in the state. We also publish, as I mentioned earlier, or alluded to earlier, the list of disciplinary records. It's currently a PDF that's about 1,000 pages. We're taking steps to make that a searchable a dashboard that people can look up individuals and by name and by agency, and all of that is a work in progress. But the total number of officers with any discipline is about 2,000. So there's 20,000 officers, if you will, without any record. They have not been disciplined. They have done their work for however long they've been doing it with honor and pride. What we're talking about are, a sliver, if you will, in the context of there's people that engage in some misconduct, they get disciplined. There's such thing as progressive discipline, and ultimately, a subset of those 2,000, if you will, make it to eventually be decertified or are terminated, and they exit the system, but we also still track them. In other words, we're talking about a sliver, a narrow group of people that should not be in policing, and that means there's a lot of other people that are doing their job and they're doing it well.
My math's not good, but I think that's 1%.
Yeah.
So if it's 1%, if there are police officers who want redress from the determination of post, do they sue? Can they sue? Can they go to court? Any remedies that they have, or that's it?
Yeah, when somebody gets decertified, or the decisions, all decisions, not just the decertifications, can be appealed to Superior Court. We've had already, I think, 2, maybe a third one, but it's in process. So we'll see. It could happen. Nothing has been reversed since we have made those decisions.
A question I have is, you had brought up how it's a well-run machine there, which is great, because you guys are doing very effective work. I'm very happy with the post commission, and I see the work that you're doing. Is it well run because of the staff that you have doing a lot of that work as well? You obviously have trusted staff. You said, what is it, 55 staff members working for the commission?
Yep.
And is that full-time staff?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what the budget is for post each year for Massachusetts?
Yeah, it's about just shy of 11 million. We asked the legislature for 10.6, I believe. We're going to a hearing tomorrow in front of Ways and Means to restore some of the funding that the administration reduced from our ask. They increased our budget from last year for 2%, but we want that to be a little bit more. But we're around 10.5 million.
And in your opinion, if there was an oversight committee at local levels, do you think there'd have to be a robust staff for that oversight committee to be effective?
I'd say the last part of your question, I'm sorry.
In your opinion, if there was an oversight committee at local levels, do you think there has to be a robust staff to assist that committee in their work?
I think it's obviously, yes, it depends on what the charter is, what the level of oversight the city might conceive of. What I know about Boston and Springfield, which is also true for us, we leverage and rely on a lot of what happens at the police department. The first intake, which is something that has been happening for many, many years, we did not reform that in major ways. The internal affairs process that takes place is an important part of the whole process, hence our role of oversight. We have to rely on the investigations that take place by the internal affairs process, the people, and it goes up the chain of command for discipline. I cannot imagine an agency like us, the size of an agency like those, that would supplant that process. We would have to, I don't know, we would have to hire many, many more people. So by definition, we have to leverage that. My assumption would be that that would be the same thing if there was an oversight, civilian oversight board here. In other words, they have to leverage what takes place. And maybe share, shed a light into that process, have some public process of some kind that could also inform the public. I think that's that could be very valuable.
Thank you.
And if I may add to that, Director, in regard to the Oversight Board, I've attended some of the community meetings that talked about the Oversight Board, and I believe that what's most important is that in consideration of an Oversight Board, we got to begin with the end in mind. What exactly are we looking for this Oversight Board to do? Because we shouldn't be duplicating some of the process or some of the things that Post does. If anything, we should be complementing one another. So I think that there needs to be some structure behind the Oversight Board, if the community still wants to move forward with that. And again, to start with the end in mind. At the end of the day, what are we looking for this Oversight Board to do that probably doesn't fit within the scope of Post even?
Could I ask Reverend Talley, if you don't mind me asking, like, what kind of things are you thinking about? What do you envision as complementary, not duplicative?
Well, if they're looking for some disciplinary process to happen to officers who misbehave or are doing something that's against the law, or mistreatment of some individuals, those are some of the things that Post handles when somebody issues a complaint. So for an Oversight Board to say, well, we want to handle those things, well, that's already being handled. Once a complaint is submitted and is verified, then that's something that Post handles. So to have something in addition to that, I think is duplication. What I heard from the community was that this community oversight board wanted to have the power to subpoena officers, to ask questions, to dig a little deeper into certain cases. And while we don't do that as Post, that would be helpful information for Post to have once that information has been obtained. So I can see the Oversight Board doing something like that, where they want to do more investigative type research over a complaint or a problem or something that's been brought to their attention. So things like that, I can see an Oversight Board being helpful or complementary to Post.
So for instance, existing to issue reports, but are you saying not to make final decisions, or are you okay with final decisions?
You mean final decisions for
On
the...
police misconduct matters, was there misconduct or not?
Well, that's what we do. I mean, that's what Post does. You know, we make the determination, was there misconduct? Does it require disciplinary a decision to be brought upon that officer? So that's something that will be part of our purview. I wouldn't see that as an Oversight Board's purview. If anything, this is just my own opinion, I would see the Oversight Board supplying Post with maybe additional information that would help give more details about the case, so we're better informed as to what's really happening with the complaint that was issued.
I would think that those who disagree with you their complaint would be it's a matter of post capacity, not its level of responsibility that they would like to enhance. They just don't think that 100 active investigations for 22,000 officers is all that is to be said beyond internal police department reviews across the state. So because the capacity of post, because you ask for more money and you don't get it, so because the capacity of post is not vast enough, that's where local sets of eyes and ears and determinations supplement the post process, even though some of what they might do might be duplicative. It's only necessary because post doesn't have the capacity to be everywhere.
So if I understand the question or statement correctly, what I hear you saying is that an oversight board could assist posts because we don't have as many people as we could have to take on more cases, for them to have the power to make determinations as to what should happen with an officer. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that's the gist of when people want something here in Worcester. It's not that they don't respect post or value what it does. It's they just think it's not expansive enough for the amount of incidents statewide that occur with police departments, or in our city, for instance.
Yeah.
And I don't want to interrupt you, Randy, but didn't we, if I'm not mistaken, Manuel mentioned that these 100-ish cases are ones that were like sort of the cream rising to the top, right? They were like the necessary actions, the things where they were the most resource intensive, things that like needed to be done right away. So I think that when we're discussing the Civilian Review Board, concerns are that like we don't want other things that, you know, might be falling through the cracks to never come back, right? Mm-hmm. Is that what we're talking? Is that a fair point to the post members? Like, I mean, I know there's only 50 of you and there's a lot of cases, right? And you said that there's 100 open cases, but I'm sure that how many cases? I apologize if you mentioned this earlier and I just didn't write it down. How many cases do you get per year of the 100-ish that you open?
So I mentioned we get 1,600 complaints a year. Many of them are not sustained. I don't have that breakdown. I could get back that to you, but a majority, a number of them are probably sustained, and the officer is disciplined. Maybe they get written reprimand, maybe they get a suspension, or maybe even they get terminated. That doesn't necessarily mean that we will open a preliminary inquiry, which is the 100 cases that I mentioned. It could be that we are satisfied with the level of discipline that the police department did, and that is there for now.
And I think that that's the purpose and point of a local oversight commission, because we decertify people, right, Commissioner Talley? But I think to think about 1,600 complaints and 22,000 officers, and I will say, Enrique, it doesn't mean all of those officers are necessarily great. It just means we haven't received complaints. We couldn't possibly receive complaints from nobody has that capacity from everyone for everything. And I think, so for local oversight boards, I think that's the purpose. And I think that's what communities that are interested in that, or community folk that are interested in that, that's what they're talking about. At the end of the day, it's accountability. Because we may get calls as maybe on the helpline that don't rise to the level of what Post would consider something we need to investigate for any number of reasons, right? But if you have, for instance, I would think, again, just speaking for me, a local, a community that people have had an issue with the same officer on a continuous basis, right? Maybe that's something that would come to a local civilian oversight board in terms of what they think is bias, correct? That wouldn't be something necessarily that we would get. So I think, again, it's not to supplant our authority or whatever we have. It's simply a complement to, like, I think all local police departments should have, have internal affairs, obviously, but a way for communities to lodge complaints if there are complaints about different things. And so we couldn't possibly, even as great as we are, like we wouldn't get all of those complaints. We wouldn't know that either, right? We just get the complaints we can get. And as Enrique said, the referral to us is usually from the police department itself, from the chief. And there's all kinds of things that, you can go into that. I mean, it just is what it is. So I think that, again, we don't need local police departments to investigate for us or anything. It's just, even if it rises to the level that we would take on a case like that to investigate. But there are many we don't see, I'm sure. And that's the power of having a local oversight board. Again, how that would be made up, how that would look makes a difference too, because if it doesn't work, it's just as frustrating, I think, for the public, for communities.
If I may, I remembered a question that came up the first time I was here, because I know the Human Rights Commission charter, is at least has been focused around this topic. And the question I remember getting from the chair back then was, how do we know that they are submitting all the information that they're required to submit? In other words, the police department, the 2 days that I mentioned, all the complaints that they're required to submit. The honest answer is that we don't currently know whether they are submitting the information that they're required to do. I mentioned an audit program that we have been trying to launch and have all the intention to launch, so that we could check. We have a lot of evidence that we're getting a lot of information, and I get a lot of calls. We get a lot of calls about people, agencies, police departments wanting to submit all the information that they're required to do. But we really don't know if everybody at all times is complying with that. I would imagine that a civilian oversight board could help really well in that arena, because they could have, if they're conceived that way, they could understand our regulations, they could have access to some of those files, and they could test whether this is something that had to be submitted to post or not. I mentioned there's certain categories that are never always supposed to be submitted. There's no minor matter exception. Even if they were not sustained, they have to be submitted to us. Those are the things that I would like to test when we open an audit program. But it's clearly one area that a civilian oversight board could complement really well.
Mm-hmm.
And if I may add to the thought of, well, what do you see an oversight board doing with posts? For me, I think it would be helpful with some of what's already been said if the civilian oversight board would do more investigative information and get more facts and information. And then maybe then at that point, they could make a recommendation to post saying, well, based on this repeated occurrence with this particular officer, we're recommending that they be suspended or decertified. Here are the facts. Here's our complaint. Here's what we recommend. And then hand it over. I mean, that's the two working together.
Yeah, we can get complaint and information from any source, so that applies to anybody who wants to submit information to us.
This is invaluable to our community. Thank you so much for your perspectives. It's quite a learning experience for us, and we think a lot of important decisions are being made in the city of Worcester right now. And I think that all of these ideas and suggestions and insights are incredibly valuable to the administration, to the general public, to us to the extent that we have anything to say. So we're just very grateful for all three of you coming and giving us your knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
Yeah,
you.
just to reiterate the vice chair's comments, he's absolutely right. I think that the work that the three of you are doing as public servants to the state cannot be understated. So I appreciate you coming in and giving us your time and allowing us to give you questions and giving us your personal perspectives as well, which I think also holds just as much weight. And so I appreciate that tremendously. So thank you to the three of you.
Thank you.
And we
you.
thank you for the invite. We appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about POST because a lot of people still don't know about POST. And if anything, as a takeaway, I would encourage the community to check out the Mass Post Commission website. You'll find a lot of valuable information there, what we're doing, what decisions have been made, what are we working on. So all that information is there, and even about the Post Commission itself. So we can get more, we as a community can be more educated as to resources like this that's available to help.
To the chair, the last few minutes really made sense to me. I was able to wrap my head around the conversation that the director and those on the commission opposed, along with our Commissioner Randy Feldman, talking about that it looked like the oversight in the community of Review Board for Citizen almost served like a trial court. And they get the information and then they can pass it on to the appellate court or what have you, which is the Massachusetts Post Committee and Commission, and that makes sense to me. If you have 100 different types of complaints or what have you, with 22,000 police officers, and maybe you have 1% of them that you only bring in, but the community have eyes and ears, and they have the heartbeat of the community as we represent the constituents of our community, and to pass it on, that made sense to me. And I think that be working together as a symbiotic relationship is a win-win situation to the constituents of our city and to the state and even to the nation. So it really makes sense to me. And I really appreciate the conversation. Thank you for your time and the expertise and the way you did it, speaking truth in love. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Alrighty. Thank you to our guests. I'm going to put us back on track with the rest of the agenda.
Thank you.
Have a good night to those of you
Thank you.
that came in. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, folks. Bringing us back to, let me pull it up. Commission business. Can I get a motion to approve last month's minutes?
I make a motion that we approve last month's minutes.
Second.
Can I get a second? Awesome. Pat, can I get a roll call, please?
So we have a motion to approve the minutes from last month, made by Dr. Reese, seconded by Reverend John Slavinskis. Roll call, the members present, please. Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Aye.
Excuse me. Dr. Bernard Reese.
Aye.
Anahit Marudian.
Aye.
Drew Schneblin.
Aye.
And Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis.
Aye.
The motion carries. Just to let you know, Randy stepped out at 7:32, so that's why I didn't call him.
Oh, right. He said he needed to. Okay. Next on our agenda. Any housekeeping? Yeah, I guess I'll take this opportunity to speak. So I wanted to share with the commission that this will be my last meeting for a variety of reasons, but tonight is my final meeting on the commission. I am not seeking to be reappointed. My term is technically up next month, but I am choosing that this month be my final month. I want to express my deepest, my deepest sincere thoughts to all of you and the work that we've all done to Kevin and Pat for their support during this time. I am confident in Vice Chair Feldman, who hopefully won't be replaced anytime soon. He'll be able to hold the torch and move that forward. We shall see kind of what next month brings, and I know that the staff liaison and are connecting with the city manager to see what that's all about. But I know that the work that we do sometimes is thankless. I know that sometimes it seems like we're speaking to the void, but it is critical work, and it's such important work. And so I want to leave you all with the thought that, I served on this commission for almost 5 years, I think. And I was really proud of everything that we accomplished, that we were able to change. And so for me, it's bittersweet, but it's one of those things where you hope that what comes next is only better things for the commission. So I'm grateful to each of you for the dedication that you all have to the commission, the time that you've given. I wanted to share that with all of you tonight. So thank you.
Thanks, Guillermo. You're going to be missed greatly. You've done great work.
Thank you.
We all really appreciate you. It's going to be weird. It's going to be sad. but on to bigger and better things for you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your effort, your time that you put in, your passion for the work that you do. That makes it even more than just your knowledge, but the character, the love that you have for humanity. It reminds me of, I believe, what the Commission of Education of Massachusetts, and Horace Mann, he said, "Be ashamed to die until you have won some small step for humanity." You could die now because you have done that. You would have got to be ashamed. I commend you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Reese. Really appreciate it. Well, I wish those of you luck. For those of you that are new to the commission, please continue to love the work that you do, and please continue to feel that this work is important. And I look forward to keeping tabs on what you all are up to. So, thank you.
In that vein, Guillermo, if you don't mind, Pat, do we have any updates as to new commissioners, what the plan is for the ones that are being put up for, when their term is running out next month? I know that Rob still hasn't been replaced. I know that it's not posted anymore, which I assume means that we have somebody in the pipeline. Is that a good guesstimate?
We do have some people for various boards and commissions that Kevin and I are in the process of arranging interviews with. I don't recall exactly which of the boards and commissions that is. I do believe there were several that were for this commission, but on a broad spectrum, we need members across the board on all the boards and commissions that we oversee in our office. So he and I are working on that right now. This thing with Guillermo has somewhat come up, it's somewhat unexpected, I think. And Guillermo, I wish you the best. So we will have to talk probably offline at some time just about scheduling coming up in terms of the May meeting, because the May date is actually a holiday. So we do need to discuss that just as a matter of logistics, and hopefully we'll have more to fill in within the next month or so in terms of the new positions or new applicants or potentially new members.
Okay,
Do we have
great.
others that are leaving, or?
Well,
Because
that's
I
the
know
other
they're not
question.
confused on who is what, like what month is what and who is who. Like
It's listed on the website.
okay.
I
Everybody-
actually have the human resources checking on the appointments because they had sent me over information that I passed along to several of the boards and commissions, and it was incorrect. And I had several commissioners tell me that, not just from this commission, but other commissions, that they were listed in the wrong district or the date was wrong. So we are trying to get that all sorted out as well, so we can, plan from that at least as well.
So, I'm hoping, it feels a little deja vu-esque, I'm not going to lie, based on what we had to deal with last year with
I
some of this.
understand.
So I'm hoping that means that we're not going to come into next month's meeting erasing a bunch of people like we did last time? Because that would be tough for us to have quorum even at that point if Jackie and I mean, on the website, it's, I believe, Jackie and Randy and Guillermo. And like you said, that may or may not be wrong. I know you brought that up. I think it was in January that we discussed that. But is there any information there that we know of? Like that we're, I mean, do we have any information about if we're going to keep them or not?
We do not.
Do we know when we'll know that information? Can we find out like as soon as humanly possible so we can know what we're going to do for the next meeting?
It's a work in progress, Drew. It's something
Sure.
that Kevin and I are both working on.
All right. And I mean, it's the city manager's decision, correct?
Direct an answer
Kevin?
to that. So we do have a new process when it comes to appointing commissioners. So now the city manager is removed from that process. It goes to CAC, and then it gets bumped to the staff liaison and the department head on that.
Okay.
The department head still should also provide an update to the city manager so that they're aware, but that's the new process moving forward.
Great. So it's you and Pat making that decision.
Correct.
Great. All right. Well, we'll just we'll await your decision, I suppose. Thanks.
Okay. I also wanted to make an acknowledgement, if you all will allow me. As we recognize Women's History Month, we take this moment to honor the countless contribution women are making every day in our community, our city, and across our country. This month is not only a time for reflection, but a time of recognition and responsibility. It calls on us to celebrate leadership, resilience, and impact of women, especially those who have been historically overlooked. Black women, Latina women, Indigenous women, immigrant women, LGBTQ women, and women with disabilities continue to shape movements, drive change, and strengthen the fabric of our society. At the same time, Women's History Month reminds us that the work is far from complete. Women continue to face disparities in pay, healthcare, safety, and representation. For many, these challenges are compounded by intersecting identities that deepen inequities. As a Human Rights Commission, we affirm that advancing the rights of women is central to our mission. We remain committed to advocating for policies and practices that uplift, protect, and empower women in all of their diversity. We also call on the city manager's administration, as well as community partners, to use this month as an opportunity to reflect on their efforts and to take meaningful steps towards equity. Recognition must be paired with action, not just during this month, but throughout the year. Women's History Month is a celebration and a call to action, and we all have a role to play. A little bit of a acknowledgement for the commission to send over to the city manager. Is that right, Pat?
Yes.
Yeah, so can I get a motion then?
I think in the past what you've been doing is just sending me over that language you read, and then I've been submitting it that way.
Okay, that works too.
Also, I wanted to let you know that Carrie had informed me that she would be still doing the minutes for the meeting. She'll review the meeting recording and then go from there, just so all of you are aware of that.
Perfect. I'll send that over to you, Pat.
And presumptively, I would think, since Randy stepped out, that we will hold over his discussion.
Yes,
Item D.
agreed.
Okay.
And Randy, just given the nature of things, will be chairing the next meeting. So that's it. Any other comments or questions from commissioners before I motion to adjourn?
Through the chair, I just want to end again, Guillermo. I know we talked earlier on the phone. I do want to thank you for your service. I think you're someone, when it comes to professionalism, you carry that very well in many spaces, and I understand some of the challenges that you've had as well, but also find a way to push through. So I enjoyed partnering with you, and best of luck with your new endeavor.
Thank you. And yeah, I appreciated the time I had with you, Kevin, as well. It was weird to have a time where there was no chief equity officer, and we were kind of in limbo, but Victor did a great job too. and Jana, and so it's been lovely to work with different members of the city government. So thank you for your work, and so I look forward to seeing kind of what comes next for all of you. All right, and with that, folks, can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, Pat, can I get a roll call, please?
So we have a motion to adjourn made by Member Reverend John Slavinskas, seconded by Member Drew Schneblin. Roll call vote, please, of the members present. Chairperson Guillermo Creamer Jr.,
Aye.
Member Dr. Bernard Reese,
Aye.
Member Anahit Marudian,
Aye.
Member Drew Schneblin,
Aye.
and Member Reverend Jonathan Slavinskas.
Aye.
Thank you all. The motion carries. We are adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.